Hello everybody, it's Jeffrey Booth from the Stories for My Lights YouTube channel, and today I'm going to tell a story made up completely on the top of my head. I don't even have a concept going into this. So I'm going to come up with a concept right now off the top of my head and somehow make a story all about it. And this concept is going to be a camera lens that can see into other dimensions. Yes, a camera lens that can see into other dimensions. I have no idea how I'm going to make a story about this, but watch as I fail and then tease me mercilessly in the comment section down below. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Charlie. Charlie was 12 years old and he loved taking pictures. Normally, he would take pictures of birds and trees and toys in weird positions, and he also really loved to take his G.I. Joes and his action figures and take pictures of them with red corn syrup, really strange, like pictures with blood coming out of their nose. Don't ask me why, but Charlie enjoyed that. Well, you see, one day Charlie got a new camera for his birthday, his 12th birthday to be exact, and he decided that he was gonna go to the park and take pictures with it. So he grabbed his camera bag, packed everything up, told his parents he was on his way, and disappeared to the newest park. It was a beautiful sunny day, great for taking pictures in the early fall. He was taking pictures of golden leaves, red leaves, of ducks swimming in the river, of the stream, of kids playing on the playground. He was having so much fun, he accidentally stayed until it got dark. And he wasn't supposed to be out until after dark, as his parents will tell you. But he did. And as it got dark, he discovered a whole new world of beautiful things to take pictures of. He got a picture of a cricket in mid-jump. He took a picture of the harvest moon as it arced across the sky. He put his camera on a tripod and took a beautiful picture of the stars twinkling. He was having so much fun, he did not realize he stayed out until midnight. Well, he happened to glance at his watch, saw midnight, and realized that his parents were going to terribly punish him. It was not going to be good. So he put everything back away in his backpack, put his backpack on, and started sprinting down the sidewalk towards his house. Well, he hadn't been to this park too many times at night, and he was running through a field when his foot got caught on something, possibly a tree root, he wasn't sure, and he fell face first on the ground, smacking his head in the dirt, hitting his elbow on a rock and getting a little bit of scratching, and just overall being in a very uncomfortable position. So he laid there for a moment thinking, oh, what's 1 minute gonna matter? Ouch. And he got up. His foot was caught inside of something. He thought it was a root once again, and he went to pull on it, and it wouldn't budge. And it felt much solider, more smooth than a root. He got behind it, got his foot out, and then grabbed it with his hand. And as he did, a chest lid opened up. This was no tree trunk. This was no tree root. This was nothing natural. It was the handle of a chest. And inside of it was another small chest. This one was a rectangular box with little gold patterns all over it. And he took it out and he tried to open it, but there was a lock. And so he thought, well, I'm gonna have to get home and deal with this later. So he put the smaller chest in his backpack and he ran home as fast as he could. Needless to say, his parents were very, very, very upset that he had been out so late. He got his video game consoles taken away for an entire week. And he also got his play dates with his friends taken away. So all he could do was stay home the whole week. To be truthful, this didn't bother him that bad because he could edit the photos he had taken at the park and he could also figure out what was inside of this box. So the next day after school, an uneventful day of school, mind you, he went right up to his room, not even saying hi to his parents or his sister, and he got to work on the box. Now this lock was very small. It too was made out of gold. It looked as if it was something you could break merely by wedging a stick inside of it and using it as a mini crowbar. But he tried that, it wouldn't budge. So then he went down to his father's tool chest and he got a screwdriver. It wouldn't budge. He got a thicker screwdriver. It wouldn't budge. Eventually, he did get an actual crowbar, which barely fit inside the lock. He yanked on it. It didn't budge. So Charlie thought this was rather strange. Think about it. He tripped on a handle in the park in the middle of the night. If that were there in the daytime, somebody would have seen it. Inside of it is another chest that he happens to find. He brings it home. He can't get the lock off. Charlie was generally a very pragmatic and realistic person, but he did come to suspect that something more interesting was afoot here, perhaps something magical. And so he went over to his computer and he started looking up how to open up magical locks. And he found so many different opinions on the subject. Some of them said merely you must know the magic word. And so he went to the lock and he tried every magical word these websites listed. Abracadabra, Calakazam, Open McSesame, Open Sesame, Sesame McJohnson, Kalerbo McGagalag, Hansi, Bachabalos Magagos, and Pergadash. None of these magic words worked. He also ranted and raved and yelled out a few other magic words, but they too didn't work. And there was another one that said if he mixed dirt with water from a fresh rain, that would open the lock. He didn't have any fresh rain, so he couldn't try that today. And there was one more that told him he must merely hold it with both hands and hum. And while he was humming, imagine the lock popping open. So this he could do, and so this he did. He held the lock in his hands. With all of his imagination, he imagined the lock opening. He believed it would open, and then he hummed. And the lock opened up. He took the padlock off, and he was actually surprisingly nervous to open the chest, because do you know what just happened meant? It meant this was a magic chest. It meant somehow he believed this was destined for him. So he opened the lid, and inside was not at all what he had expected, for he thought perhaps there would be a dagger, a key, a wand, a scroll, something straight out of a fairy tale. But no, in here was a camera lens. It looked to be a zoom camera lens. It was rather long. It looked to be about 25 to 74 millimeters. And he thought, I don't understand what's going on here. He took the lens out, hooked it up to his camera, and took a picture. Now, this is gonna sound almost unbelievable, but the picture he took was not of the dresser in his room that he had his camera pointed at. It was of a purple haze. And inside of that purple haze, far into the distance, looked to be a very jagged mountain range, far more jagged than anything he had ever seen on Earth. He looked at the lens, he took it off and looked through the glass, and he saw the same thing. And as he moved around, he could see different parts of these purple mountains in the purple haze. He saw something in the distance that he thought perhaps could have been a tree. And as he turned around, all the way in a circle, he saw something that made his heart pound, made him jump, and made him yell. There was a creature, but it wasn't a creature like he had seen. It resembled a giant beetle standing on two legs. It had very muscular legs that looked to be covered in some sort of black armor, and it had boots with spikes on them. Its body was exactly like that of a roly-poly, and it had 4 arms coming out. 2 of the arms ended in hands. The other 2 arms ended in serrated spikes that looked to be sharper than any sword he had ever seen. It had on top of 2 long stalks, red glowing eyes. And it seemed to be looking out at him. And it seemed to reach for him. And as it reached for him, he jumped back and put the lens down. And he thought, I'm going crazy. What's going on? I'm going crazy. What's going on? He was panicking. Because of all this, he decided to put the lens away and take a little break. He didn't know what was happening, but he did know he was scared, and he did know that he was freaking out. The next morning when he woke up, he thought it had all been a dream. But much to his surprise, the box was still there, and inside the box was the lens. He dared pick it up one more time and use it almost as a telescope, and as he did, he saw the same thing. And even more frightening, he saw the beetle creature, but it wasn't in the same spot. It was standing over his bed. It almost seemed to be looking at him. How could that be? Well, his mom called him for school, and he did not want to tell her about this. So he put it away and he ran to school. That day, in his math class, his teacher happened to be giving a lecture on something he had never even heard about, quantum physics. And as part of quantum physics and string theory. And as part of this, his teacher had been telling them how there could be many different dimensions, anywhere between 6 to 12. Some people even believed more than that. And the teacher said that they had no idea what any of these dimensions could be. But Charlie thought about it. A different dimension. He had a camera lens. He had a camera lens that could let him see into a different dimension. This to him was shocking and mesmerizing, and it was all he could think about for the rest of his day. In PE class, he was playing dodgeball and he kept getting hit in the head. In English class, the teacher had to call on him 4 times before he actually heard her. He could think about nothing but the other dimension. So when he got home, he said, "Mom, Dad, I'm gonna go out and take pictures." And they said, "Okay, well, you're ungrounded today, so do as you see fit." He took his camera and he went back to the park. He hooked the lens up to his camera so he could see better. And when he pointed it around everywhere, he was shocked by what he saw. All around the park was purple, strange trees that looked like some sort of tentacled octopus. And more frighteningly, he saw these strange beetle creatures, but they were lined up in groups of almost 100. It looked to him like something you would see in a video about the army of soldiers marching in formation. This started to get him kind of scared because he was wondering, why was the magic box there? It had to be there for a reason. And if somebody wanted to show him something, it had to be really important, because this isn't something that you would just give anybody. And if it was really important, could that mean there was danger coming? So as you can imagine, he was quite scared by the prospect that he had been thrust into some situation where he might end up having to be a hero. And so he explored all around the park, and he found another formation of these strange creatures on the other side across the natural area field. It must have been 100 again, and they were all lined up, standing still. So he walked all over. He found 2 more formations of these creatures. They weren't moving, they weren't doing anything. It got him wondering if they were sleeping. Perhaps they were nocturnal creatures. If this world he were looking into even had a day or night cycle. Well, he decided that he was going to come back one night, even though he knew he would get in trouble. So he went home that day and told his parents how much he had enjoyed taking photos, had a nice dinner with them, and went up to his room. And all he could do was go to bed, because he was going to get up at 2 in the morning. So he went to bed, and he woke up, but not at 2 in the morning. He actually woke up at 12, midnight. But he didn't wake up naturally. There was a knocking on his window. He was paranoid and scared because of all that had been going on. So he ducked down and crawled towards the window as stealthily as he could. And when he got towards it, he peeked up over the edge, and there he saw a human. It was a human about his size, although it did look to be an adult from the shape of its face. It was wearing all black. The only thing he could see were its eyes. It knocked again, and he stood up and looked at it, and it made the motion, "Let me in, let me in." So he opened the window. The person that came through said, "Hey, are you Charlie?" Charlie said, "Yes, I am." "Well, I'm here. Did you get the lens?" And he said, "Yeah, I got the lens. What is it?" And the person looked at him, his head cocked sideways, and said, "What do you mean, what is it? Didn't you read the directions?" Charlie shook his head. "Directions?" He walked back over to the chest and lifted up the felt lining on the bottom, and inside were directions. It was a note. The note merely said, "The invasion comes. You must be a scout. If they make it through, we will not be able to stop them. But if we can close their portals, they will give up and find an easier dimension to invade." Charlie felt himself get lightheaded. He felt his heart start pounding. He was not enjoying what was happening. And the person in the black outfit said, "My name is Rion, by the way." Charlie shook his hand and said, "Rion, where are you from?" "I'm from a planet like yours. We're a little more advanced than you, and our technology is more powerful. And these creatures tried to invade us, and we just barely managed to beat them back. But we've known of your dimension for a long time. We've checked in on you from time to time. We've even helped you where we can. And we detected these creatures living in the dimension just next to yours, getting ready for an invasion, and we knew we had to help. Now, because of rules of our government, we are not allowed to come through and help you with our armies, but we can send a few people through and we can help you close their portals. And Charlie said, well, how do we do that? And Rian said, well, have you seen these creatures anywhere? And Charlie said, I saw one in my room. Rian shook his head. They know you have the lens then. Time is of the essence. And Charlie said, how do we stop them? And Rian said, look at these. And he held out his hand, and inside his hand were 5 balls. They had a weird glow about them. Rian told Charlie, now these are portal closers. There's 5 of them. They can only make 5 portals at a time. It takes an immense amount of energy to generate these portals, and these creatures do not have the technology to make more than 5 within any 1-year period. If you stop them, you buy yourself at least a year, probably longer. And Charlie said, okay, what do I do? And Rian said, we need to go to the park. You need to tell me where the portals are so that I can close them right as they open. Charlie was scared. He didn't know what would happen if one of those portals got open and one of those creatures came through and attacked him. He didn't know what would happen to him or what would happen to his city, his family, his friends, his country, his world. But he knew that for whatever reason, he had been chosen by the fates. And though it scared him, he would try his best to be brave. And so he told Rian he was in. And Rian asked him to lead him to where he had seen the creatures in the park. And so they both walked through the night, talking and chatting. Rian told him stories of his family, of their world, of the technology they had, of the fact they had been to many different worlds, that they could stop and travel through time. It was amazing to the point of being unbelievable. Finally, they got to the park, and Rian shivered, and he said, I can feel them. I feel the energy building. We don't have much time. Get your camera out. Show me. Tell me what you see. Charlie got his camera out, and he saw only one of the creatures. He told Rian. Rian said, no, one of them is a fake. They're trying to get us to use our portal busters. We must find them. And so they crept all around the park until finally, in a grove of plum trees, he saw them lining up, this time single file, as if they were about ready to go through a door or perhaps a portal. He told Rian exactly where they were, and Rian said, okay, tell me when they start moving. So they both sat and waited quietly. The only sounds, crickets in the distance, a plane flying overhead, and their labored breathing. Finally, one started moving, and Charlie said, he's moving, he's moving! And Rian quickly said, where? And Charlie pointed to the exact area with his foot, and Rian twisted one of the portal buster balls, set it down, and it started glowing. And then the portal opened, and one of the creatures stepped halfway through, and then the portal went vroom and snapped shut, and the creature got chopped in half, and it was writhing on the ground. Charlie couldn't believe what he was saying. This creature was much bigger than it looked when he was looking through the camera. And Rian said, one down, let's go find the next portal. And so they did this 3 more times. They found the portal, Charlie told him what was happening, and Rian got the portal buster down just in time. But here's where the problems began. They couldn't find the 5th portal. Rian told him he'd never seen anything like this before because Charlie kept finding individual creatures all over the place. Then Rian had a thought. Charlie, are there any big power plants around here? And Rian said, well, yeah, there's a nuclear power plant about 5 miles away. And Rian said, oh no, you have a nuclear power plant nearby? Come, we must go. And Rian snapped his fingers, and under him, out of nowhere, appeared a 4-wheeler. It looked like a 4-wheeler that we have, but much more futuristic, and it didn't make the sounds of a petroleum combustion engine. Anyway, Charlie got on back and they roared off. Charlie gave Rian directions until finally they arrived at the nuclear power plant. Charlie got out his camera, and believe it or not, they saw one of the creatures walking through the front door. Charlie and Rian headed that way, but Charlie said, Rian, there's security here. We have no way to get through. Don't worry about that, Rian said. He pulled another ball out. He opened it, and he pointed a strange beam at both of them. Just like that, they were invisible. Cool, Charlie said. They walked to the front door and opened it. Surprisingly, no security guards were present. That was strange. Charlie got out his camera and he could see where the creature was going. They followed the creature through long hallways, through open rooms, through chambers which had what looked to be generators, until finally it stopped and stood outside a room that had a radiation warning logo on it. "It's coming," Charlie said. Rian got his ball ready and threw it on the ground, but it didn't work. The creature started stepping through. Rian threw his ball on the ground, but it didn't work. The creature was all the way through, and the portal closed behind him. It looked back at Charlie, and it looked at Rian with a hideous shriek, and they both cowered in fear and stepped backwards. It seemed to ignore them, punching through the steel door to get into what lay beyond. Charlie thought it must be the reactor. "Oh no," Rian said. "It's gonna open a bigger portal. It's gonna use this energy to open a bigger portal. We have to stop it. Take this." And he handed Charlie another ball. And Charlie said, "What is this?" Rian said, "It's an explosive device. You have to get it inside the creature's mouth. It's our only hope." And Rian grabbed one of the balls himself as well. Charlie said, "What am I doing?" They both ran through the door and chased after the creature. When they caught up to it, it had a black device, and it was taking cables from that device and attaching it to what appeared to be a power conduit. "Hey, you big stupid beetle!" Rian shouted, and the creature looked at him and hissed. Rian looked at Charlie, said, "Please, make sure it gets in its mouth." And Rian started fighting. He kicked the creature in the abdomen, and it shrieked in pain or rage. Charlie didn't know which, and he tried to get the ball in, but it was too fast. Rian and the beetle creature battled back and forth, back and forth. He could see cuts on Rian's arms, but Rian was so fast it was almost unbelievable. And finally, something terrible happened. The creature slashed Rian's leg with its spiked arm, and he fell to the ground. And the creature got over him and opened its wicked mouth. Charlie could see row after row of vicious fangs. And the creature opened its mouth and roared and went down to bite Rian. Just like that, Charlie did a somersault, threw the ball, went into the creature's mouth, and it closed. It looked frightened. It flailed around and it gasped, and then it exploded. Goo from this creature was all over the place. Rian was hurt. His leg was bleeding, but he seemed like he would survive. Charlie lifted Rian up and helped him back to their four-wheeler outside. Rian was panting very hard and seemed as if he might lose consciousness. "In the back, there's a trunk. Get out the syringe in the brown box." Charlie did so, got the syringe out. Rian asked him to put it in his leg and inject him, and he did. And just like that, almost as if magic, Rian's leg healed right before Charlie. Nanotechnology from the future. You'll get this someday. "Charlie, I've got to get back to my own world. We've stopped them, but I need to tell the elders what happened. Their tactics are changing. I'll drive you home, and then we must say goodbye." And so they drove home faster than Charlie ever believed possible. That four-wheeler must have been going at least 150 to 200 miles an hour. Rian dropped Charlie off, saluted him, said thank you, and then goodbye. And then he drove through a portal himself, this one of green. Charlie couldn't believe what had happened. He went inside and he laid down and he realized he had saved the world, or at least helped. But he couldn't help but wondering, who was Rian? What were these beetle creatures? Why did they want to come here? What was Rian's civilization like? All these questions just rolled through his head. These are questions for another time and another place. For tonight we know that the world was saved, that Rian helped, that everyone is okay. Even the smallest person, only 12, can be a hero and can be courageous. I think that's a lesson. If we overcome our fear, we can do almost anything. Thank you all then for listening to this story. I do apologize if it was a little disjointed. I'm feeling quite tired today, and my mind is not functioning as well as normal. And you might say it's never functioning well, and I might agree with you on that one. Anyhow, I want you to know I love you more than anything. Sweet dreams.